WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. This means that if there's a Space Marine with a las cannon, it's representing a Space Marine with a las cannon. Maybe it's in a tactical squad, but because the tactical squad sprue doesn't have a las cannon, taking one from the Devastator sprue and putting it in your tactical squad, it's still a Space Marine with a las cannon. Everyone can see it's a Space Marine with a las cannon as long as you're familiar with 1 Space Marines and 2 las cannons. And if you weren't familiar with las cannons before the battle, your tanks will be very familiar with las cannons after the battle. Or monsters. Because Tyranids don't have tanks. Why is the vehicle and monster keyword different? Never mind. The point is, it's easy to see what a model has, if you're familiar with the faction's weapons. An Eldar missile launcher and an Eldar star cannon, well, 8 out of 10 dentists can't tell the difference. I mean players. 8 out of 10 players. This was something that used to be in the core rulebook. It's something that people have followed for many generations of the rules. And I have another video that talks about it in more detail. I really recommend it because it's fun and covers far more points than I will in this video. But now it seems like WYSIWYG has died. Not just on the casual boards, but tournament boards as well. Part of that comes down to the points. In 10th edition, the points are more like 8th and 9th edition's power level. All war gear options are free. So some options are obviously better than others. If you put a plasma pistol on your Palatine, you're avoiding the coolness of the Holy Trinity, but the stats are better than a bolt pistol, and plasma pistols have the option of overcharge. There is not an inherent risk of exploding. The non-supercharged version of a plasma pistol is better than a bolt pistol. By all of the metrics. Some units that did work before no longer work now. The Crisis battle suits, for example. They used to have an assortment of weapons. Now if you want to use the profiles in the codex, your battlesuit models may not match the weapon options that each of the kinds have. You may not have enough models with flamers and burst cannons, so any plasma rifles have to count as flamers for that unit to work as star scythe battlesuits. Fusion blasters and plasma rifles are not an option for that kind of Tau unit. And not everyone has magnetized their models, especially older models. You didn't know in 2015 that the battlesuits would be split into lots of different units with exclusive weapons. You had no way of predicting that. Some units have better special rules depending on the gear that you pick. Metamorphs can have hand flamers or auto pistols. When there were points, this mattered because you were spending points for a better hand flamer weapon. As there's no points, you would go for the hand flamers. However, if your unit has no hand flamers, their Brood Surge move is always 6 inches. If you have all hand flamers, it is D6 inches, and you have a good overwatch and better shooting. You decide if you want the better gun, or if you're mostly relying on charges and melee to cause damage, and you don't want to make charges harder, so you aren't going to fire the fire pistols anyway, even if you had them. But as soon as you have one hand flamer, you get the worst version of the special rule. So if you run Metamorphs, you will claim that they're all auto pistols or they're all hand flamers. Having a mix is the worst option, even if it is a legal loadout. The main thing to remember is as long as it adds very little additional mental load to the game, it's okay. Remembering that one unit of tactical marines with bolters are intercessors instead of a tactical squad, no problem. Remembering that your opponent's sergeant has a plasma gun instead of a flamer on that Havoc squad, but another sergeant with a flamer is a flamer, but a third one that has a chainsword has actually got a melter gun. Limiting the amount of counts as models is polite to your opponent and also helps you remember your army. Getting partway through a firing sequence of a unit and then thinking, oh wait, I shouldn't have rolled that flamer. It should have been a melter gun, I said it was a melter gun, and I've rolled the dice as if it was a flamer. Oops. Or you're taking off casualties for your Imperial Guardsmen and realizing later that you have taken the plasma gunners as casualties because the only difference was you put the model facing backwards. Games Workshop wants you to limit the amount of proxies. It varies depending on which of their tournament packs it is, but usually they very much enforce WYSIWYG apart from grenades, enhancements, and pistols. Events at Warhammer World want everything to be WYSIWYG, but Games Workshop has also encouraged players to ignore WYSIWYG and use the Hand of the Archon Dark Eldar kill team as Cabalites, even if the models don't fit the weapons. So don't expect consistency from Games Workshop. Sometimes 40k rules follow a weapons WYSIWYG, and sometimes they don't. Most of the time a big cannon fires like a big cannon. Other times not so much. A Vanguard Veteran Thunderhammer is a Vanguard Veteran melee weapon, but that same weapon on an Assault Intercessor is a Thunderhammer. Long Vigil range weapons for the Death Watcher, Combi Melters and Plasma Pistols and Hand Flamers on Kill Team Cassius. Very different weapons with the same profile. A Chaos Heavy melee weapon could be a Power Fist, it could be a big chain weapon, or it could be a massive axe. You can't tell what they do at a glance. Rules like that in the game is part of what has killed WYSIWYG. Most tournaments are strict on WYSIWYG in their tournament pack, but looser when it comes to the table. Don't push it, but the difference between reading a rules pack and playing a game with another human who wants to play a game and is happy to make a minor compromise on what weapons are, as you are willing to make allowances for other people. Oh, you didn't want to buy a Sternguard box and are instead using the intercessors that come in almost every combat patrol, but you painted the trim of their shoulder pads white? That sounds good. A Marine with a bolter is a different Marine with a very similar bolter. You made it clearly identified which one is the Sternguard squad and which ones are the intercessors. What you see should be close enough to the model and the weapon is representing. And it isn't just me that thinks WYSIWYG is over. I have polling results from what you think. Most of you don't care about WYSIWYG, and many of those that do were eager to tell me in the comments that they don't have a problem with their opponent not following WYSIWYG. If you don't think WYSIWYG is important, you're not alone in that. And I know WYSIWYG isn't that important in much of the online community. From talking to other normal gamers. It's me and Paul, and we go through more examples. But things can get a bit more abstract.
In terms of like stuff like models, kit bashes, I've seen people always say, "Oh no, Games Workshop don't allow any creativity. You have to do, the standard stuff." So I've seen a Seraphon World Eaters army. I've seen a Nightmare Zinchian Baby Knight army. I've seen an Exodite Eldari army. I've seen a Squig Tyrannid army.
I've seen a giant in a cool Inquisition hat.
As long as you're not going, oh yes, this Centurion is absolutely a grot, and people are going to be fine with whatever cool stuff. I have essentially a 3D printed Shrike model that I use as Shrike. I didn't used to, but because I couldn't be bothered to build my other Shrike, I use that, and people are like, that's cool Shrike. I've got the Tech Marine that everyone loves for some reason, I don't know why, which is, that's a kit bash. My entire Vanguard veterans have 3D printed claws, backpacks, helmets, based off Assault Centurions, and everyone is fine with it because people want to see cool models. Unless
you're at a Games Workshop run event with them in one of their shops, you can use proxy models, 3D models, third-party models, heavily converted models, kit bash models, scratch-built models, other game system models. I have a Robotech Sentinel, which is about the same size. No one cares. You shouldn't be afraid to kit bash.
And I think the thing people are worried about is going, oh yeah, Games Workshop run events. They're very, very few and far between. Realistically...
Unless it's in one of their shops or at Warhammer World, that's about it.
And I think even at the shops, I think people probably aren't going to be throw you out. They'll just be like, oh, okay, that's cool. But I think Warhammer World is the one place which it might be a little bit less acceptable. But even then, what I hear, as long as you aren't shouting from the rooftops, hey, look at my 3D printed model over here. Hey, Games Workshop, look over here. There's a 3D printed model.
No one cares.
There's not anyone in a camera room in the security zooming on everyone's model, trying to make sure that every piece on there is fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Genuinely don't worry about it is the best thing to think of with models. Yeah. People are going to say, that's cool as a kit bash. Your models don't have to be WYSIWYG, where what you see is what you get at tournaments, which is another thing people assume tournaments must be.
Yeah, I mean, I played a recent game against someone who had Gazgul Thracker, and unfortunately he dropped it at one point, so it had one arm. And Bakari, I think, had been destroyed, so we had to use a bomb squig. It's fine, that's whatever, works.
Yeah, your Vanguard veterans, they have... What do they assume? Either shields or assume they have Inferno pistols?
Yeah, they have lightning claws.
Even though they're not on the models?
Games Workshop took away lightning claws, which is the worst thing they've ever done. Especially stuff like pistols. And the other thing to consider is, again, if you put a gun to my head and said, which one of these Drukhari weapons is the splinter cannon? I'd be like, I don't know.
Alien weapons, Tau weapons, they're the weirdest ones. No one can tell.
As long as you're consistent. That's all that really matters. As long as it's consistent, it makes sense.
If it isn't okay, this squad with the two flamers, one of them's a flamer, one's a plasma gun. The other squad with two flamers, one's a melter gun and one's a sniper rifle. That's going to get confusing.
Yeah. The one I always point to again is Drukhari with Scourges, because Scourges come with one of each gun.
Yes.
If you have 3 units of Scourges and you model all of them with one of each gun and just say all of them are Dark Lancers, that's fine. You could even, it might be, it's probably on the line, but you could have like one rimmed slightly differently, go they are a different weapon. And that's probably fine as long as it is fairly obvious. Like, don't be like, oh yeah, the ones with the red eyes have Dark Lancers, the ones with the blue eyes have Haywire Blasters. Like, that would be a bit much. But if you have like a very obvious indication, like one of them holds a sign saying, hey, we hold Haywire Blasters, then, that's probably also fine. It's just making sure that it is consistent and clear and, not easy to change around.
You submit your tournament list, and then you stick to the list, and you explain your list to the opponent. The Adeptus Sororitas Priest, assume they have the Vindictor, which is the better weapon. You can assume that, oh yeah, these Retributors, they all have multi-melters, even though the box only contains 2 multi-melters if you buy the box, which is so weird. Same thing as like the Scourges, yes.
Exactly, yeah. I played with someone who had, I think they bought secondhand Death Guard, Greater Mephitic Blight Horse, or the other one.
Okay, a tank.
Greater Bloat Drones, the bigger Bloat Drones from Forge World. So they were really tall. He was like, basically, what we'll play it like, depending on height. I'll basically play it that they are this tall because they are too tall. So if you can see them, it's too tall. But again, it didn't really come up. No one's going around going, "Hey, that Incurser has an Infiltrator helmet." They can't be Incursors. Do you even know? Like again from a distance of standing at a table, can you even recognize the difference?
No, that is cheating with a capital C. You didn't build it exactly like the picture on the box art, therefore you must be cheating.
Hey, you're trying to be creative. We don't allow that here in these tournaments. It's standard or nothing. Get out of my sight. That doesn't happen.
Should we talk about the terrain at tournaments?
Sure. I mean, if I said no, that would have been really terrible.
No, I mean, you totally could, and we could just end it there.
No, yeah, you know what? Just cut the video there.
If you would like to know a bit more about WYSIWYG, this is the video to click on. If you would like to continue that talk with Paul and myself, this is the video you should click next. Whichever one you pick, have a great day of 40k.